All right, let's get started. So welcome to week 2 on EDUC 5312 Curriculum and Instructional Design class. This is our summer class, so it's our second week and we have one more week to go. As all you know, this is very intensive course. So on week 1, we worked on several projects. Let me give you updates on the grading. So for week 1, your online discussion 1 is graded, as well as your instructional project number 1. So there were a couple of issues with your instructional project number 1. Some of the projects were left private. So this means the links were private and I was not able to access them. So if that's the case, I put a note on your gradebook. So check the feedback section and you should be able to see what kind of note I put there. So if I cannot access your link to see your project, there's no way that I can grade your work. So if that's the case, please make your link unlisted and email me so I can regrade your work. So besides that, with instructional project number 1, one of the main issues or one of the common mistakes was about the difference between instructional objectives and informational objectives. So as we talked about this before, some of your, actually most of the students were not able to correctly identify the differences. So your objectives were mostly in the form of informational objective with less information. So typically missing condition and criteria components. So if you refer back to our chapter 6 presentation, and also you can read the book on this. So there are definite differences between instructional objectives and informational objectives. So the objectives that you wrote should have reflected those changes. So I took off some points for that. It's not really too much, but if you want to redo it and correct your objectives, you're more than welcome to do that. All right, so having said that, from week 1, I haven't, let me see, I think with this, yeah, it looks like I've graded everything in week 1 so far. And then quiz 1, you took quiz 1 on your own. So looks like everything for week 1 is currently graded. All right, so let's talk about week 2. Week 2 is very intensive, and this week we're studying 3 different chapters. These are chapter 10, chapter 11, and chapter 13. So before I talk about those chapters though, just want to show you more information about APA citation style. So I put this in the announcement section. So a lot of times when you write research papers, one of the common mistakes is again not using in-text citations properly. So this is an example of in-text citation. You can also do this at the end of the sentence like this. If it is at the end of the sentence, it needs to be in a parentheses. And then after the author names, comma, 2009, the year of publication. So, and a correct APA full reference example is right here for the same person. So make sure you're going to use these in your research papers. If you don't use in-text citation, this reference really does not mean anything. And same thing if there's in-text citation but there's no full reference at the bottom of the paper, again, it doesn't really mean anything. So they go together, and you need to make sure that you will properly cite both of them. All right, exit this out. All right. All right. Sorry. I'm gonna close this. All right. So about the chapters, chapter 10, 11, and 13, what I did, I included presentations for chapter 10, 11, and 13 in your Moodle course. So on your spare time, maybe after this webinar or later during the week, you can watch these tutorials, these presentations actually. They include the chapter presentation as well as the quiz review for that chapter. So again, you will need to actually watch them later. And before taking the quiz, let's say quiz number 2 is about chapter 10. Before taking this quiz, make sure you're going to watch this chapter 10 presentation and the quiz review. Same thing for quiz number 3. It's about chapter 11, and here's a presentation for that, and also review. And quiz number 4 is on chapter 13. This is the presentation for chapter 13, and also it includes a quiz review. All right, so so this week we're talking about direct instruction, teacher-centered instruction. We're talking about authentic teaching. These are some of the topics that we're discussing in these chapters. All right, there's a question. Can we not interpret a sentence from the textbook and just provide APA citation? That is fine. You can definitely paraphrase the things that you read from a book. So as long as you do proper citation, it will be fine. That's what we call paraphrasing. If you're not paraphrasing a sentence that you read, you need to, let's say you copy it word by word. So whatever it said in the book, you want to definitely put that in your paper. That is acceptable as long as you put that sentence in quotation marks. If the sentence is in quotation marks, you can directly copy and paste from a textbook or any other article or resource, as long as you put the in-text citation as well as full reference at the bottom. But the key point here is that you have to use quotation marks if you want to directly quote from a textbook or an article. So if you do paraphrasing, you still need to do in-text citation. That is correct, because that information that you paraphrased is coming from the book. So you have to cite the book. Yes. Yeah, unless you're making up the entire thing on your own, entire sentence or thought or opinion on your own, that's fine. But otherwise, even if you paraphrase from the book or article, you still have to use in-text citation. All right, so let's talk about online discussion of the week. All right. So on this week, I'm giving you 4 different prompts. There's prompt A, B, C, and D. So for each prompt, well, actually, you only need to respond to just one of them. All right, so let me just underline this. This is or, which means you need to do either A, B, C, or D. You don't have to answer to each of these prompts. Only one, choose one, and then go ahead and answer that question. Let's say you select prompt B. This is the prompt for that. It says, what aspects of direct instruction might explain its success? How would you tell whether a lecture has been successful? So again, choose one of these topics and post your main post on this subject. And when you post your main post, make sure you're going to use at least one APA style citation. When you respond to a student in the class, you may respond to any of these topics. Ideally, you should be responding to people or classmates who are not doing the same topic as you. So you would probably learn from them, but I'm not really going to make that as a requirement. So ideally, again, you should be responding to other topics that you didn't create your main post on. But again, this is not something that I can fully enforce. So try to do that as much as you can. All right. So questions about online discussion 3? All right, this date here, I see that this date is not correct. I need to correct. This is a typo. The date is actually this coming Thursday, which would be 8. So June 8th on Thursday, you should be done with your main post, and by the end of Sunday this week, your peer responses, 2 of them should be submitted. All right, so I'm going to go back and show you our research assignment. This is instructional project number 2, research assignment, and it's our last research assignment actually. So in this assignment, what you need to do is, I'm providing you an article actually. So it's by Casanova in 2002. It's about discovery learning. So what you need to do is, first of all, download this research paper template. So let's take a look at this. All right, so this one says instruction project number 3. It should be actual number 2. All right, so don't make this to confuse you. It's instruction project number 2. So here in this research assignment, you need to fill out this template. But before you do that, before anything on the template, go ahead and download this article. This is, again, Casanova, 2002, and it's about discovery learning. So in this paper, you're going to read about what discovery learning is, how it works, how is it effective, some of the advantages, disadvantages of discovery learning, and also you're going to read a great literature review talking about the history of discovery learning. Okay, so again, go ahead and read this article, and when you read this article, you'll learn a lot about discovery learning and some of the ways that you can use discovery learning in the classroom. So, all right, next step is, let's go back to our template. So when you write this research paper, or when you fill out this template, you need to use at least 3 different resources than Casanova and Moore. Moore is your textbook, right? So you have to be using Moore and also Casanova, but besides these 2, I need to see 3 different resources. So for part number 1, the question is, what is discovery learning? So you may cite from Casanova, you may cite from Moore, which is our textbook, or you may cite from any other article, a scholarly article, a journal article, or a web article is also fine. So here in this section, again, there's no word limit, but go ahead and talk about what is discovery learning as it is mentioned in different articles and resources. The second part of part 1 here, the prompt says, how does this form of teaching compare to traditional teacher-centered instruction? So again, Casanova has great information about this, comparing discovery learning to traditional types of learning styles, or teaching styles. Go ahead and maybe cite from Casanova on this section. All right, when you cite it again, if you're directly copying and pasting, you have to use quotation marks. If you're paraphrasing, you still need to use in-text citation and the full reference. This next question is, what educational theories support the discovery learning model? Again, Casanova has great information about this. You may use that for this part. The next question says, what is the most important thing you discovered about discovery learning? And again, this is you coming into play. So basically, you want to choose a part that you didn't know about discovery learning before, something that is really interesting to you when you read more about discovery learning. So talk about that, and you will probably want to write this entire section on your own without relying on some sources, because this is based on your opinion, right? And also this section is similar. It says, how can you apply this method to your future classroom? So even, let's say you're a practicing teacher or maybe a future teacher, think about your classroom and think about how discovery learning can be used in your classroom. Again, this will be pretty much on your own. You're going to write your own paragraph here without relying on other sources. All right, so these two sections are mostly is your work, but for other sections, you may definitely, you know, use resources as your, main text. For part number two, we pick some chapters from the textbook. All right, so these are the chapters that we're not actually studying. We're not doing any presentations or taking quizzes on. So there are 4 chapters listed here: Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 5, or Chapter 12. What you need to do for part 2 is choose one of the chapters. All right, choose one of the chapters. So let's say you want to work with, or you want to do this section on Chapter 2. These are your guiding questions on Chapter 2. So review Chapter 2, read Chapter 2, and then answer these 2 questions. All right, so if you, let's say, do your part 2 on Chapter 2, these chapters are, you don't have to answer these questions. You can simply erase them, that's fine. Okay, or delete them basically. So, but if you, let's say, choose Chapter 3 as your main topic, this is about classroom management. These are the 2 questions that you will need to answer. Other chapters, you can leave them blank, or you can simply remove them. So your responsibility is only conduct research on just one chapter out of these chapters. So either Chapter 2, 3, 5, or 12. All right. Again, each chapter has individual prompts, questions to be answered, and make sure you will address the questions properly. All right. For part number 3, this is where you cite your references. Actually, you place your full references. So I do want to see definitely 5 different resources here. One should be definitely Casanova because you're going to use that a lot. Your textbook definitely is, you're actually doing a chapter on, you're doing one chapter from your book, so it should be there as well. And additionally, 3 more resources will be needed. You may use NAU library for this purpose. You may find some articles online. You may also look up some journal articles which are freely available online. So any of those resources are acceptable, but again, make sure you will use at least Casanova and more, and on top of that, try to use 3 different resources. All right, there's a question, how many pages should this be? Again, there is no page requirement, and I'm not really looking for pages because this is not a separate research paper, it's just a template. So, right, so go ahead and use this template. Do not create a separate Microsoft Word file. I know we could do that, and it's going to be, it would be more difficult for me to read, and it would be more difficult for you to write. For that purpose, type your answers here. I'm not going to penalize you for, the font size or the font style, number of lines. We're not looking for APA style research paper here. We're looking for information which would fall under these questions. So you should be using the template versus, or rather than creating a separate research paper. So for each of these subsections, again, there's no word limit or length limit. The important thing is that you should be answering this question properly. So I would typically expect to see at least a paragraph of information here, sometimes 2 or 3. So it's up to you how much to include. All right, any other questions on research paper? All right, looks like no other questions. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and show you our next assignment, no problem. The next assignment is called Instructional Project number 3. All right, and this one is an observation assignment. Now, if we had our schools in session, I would definitely have you observe a real teacher, real classroom. But since the schools are closed, we're going to do online observations. So basically, you're going to watch some online. You're going to watch some videos of teachers teaching in the classroom, and then we'll be just watching the videos and fill out our observation forms. So in this assignment, again, we're going to see teachers teaching or instructing in the classroom, and I'm going to provide you 2 observation forms. Using those forms, go ahead and take some notes and fill out the forms based on your observation. If you're a teacher candidate, this would be a great opportunity to see how a real classroom environment works. And if you are an experienced teacher, it is always good practice to observe other teachers, even though they are maybe less experienced than you, to see what they're doing better than you or what they're doing worse than you, right? So you can definitely improve yourself in different areas. So we always need to reflect on our teaching skills. For that reason, I always say that if there's one place where we can copy and paste freely without worrying copyright or without really worrying um, about this, it would be copying from other teachers and doing the same thing in our classroom. So if you see a fellow teacher and his or her methods are working in the classroom, you can definitely copy and paste that instruction or instructional method or any other teaching tool or style in your classroom, and this would be for the benefit of the students. So if there's one place copying and pasting is allowed, it would be copying and pasting from other teachers. So for that reason, observing other teachers is a very valuable exercise, and I would definitely encourage you to do this more during the school year. But right now the schools are closed, so what we're going to do, we're going to watch these videos. So let me show you one sample one here. These are YouTube videos. Let's go to the first one. Alright, on this video, we know that this is a 3rd grade classroom, and it's about math. We even have the teacher's name here. So in some videos, you may not have this information. In some videos, you're not going to have a title, you're not going to know teacher's name. So if that information is missing, it is acceptable. You don't have to indicate that in the form, because when you open the forms, you're going to see that I'm asking about the teacher name, I'm asking about the grade level, the subject, and school information. Plus, we don't know the school names, so it is okay if you are missing information on this observation. But the important thing is that the questions listed for answering, besides the teacher name and grade level, those should be answered. So if you're missing teacher name, the subject or school name, those are acceptable. All right, you can just put simply NA in your form for those sections.
And then your group is going to get a bag. And then you're going to get, each of you will get a whiteboard, each of you will get a dry erase marker, and your group will get a tissue to wipe it off. So you're going to work the problem on the whiteboard. All right? The bags are going to look like this. This one's mine. It says what?
So in this class, teacher is doing a math activity, and there's several other activities as well. This is a shorter one, it's only 10 minutes, but the other videos are more complete. You're going to see 30 minutes long, 25 minutes long classrooms. Teachers are teaching. So let's check out the second one. There are several grade levels. This one is also this one is also elementary level, but you're gonna have high school level, middle school level videos. So whichever you find comfortable to work with, choose one of these videos for your observation. So let's watch this one a little bit.
My name is Mr. Mahoney, but you guys can call me Mr. Math. I am your future 2nd grade teacher. I just wanted to give you an idea of what it's like in my classroom. So we're going to start with a student arriving first thing in the morning. Good morning, Orla. So Orla's going to come in. She's going to go right to her table. She's going to take off her backpack, and she's going to start unpacking things. Inside her backpack, she'll probably have her beef.
All right, this teacher is very interesting. He uses singing a lot in this class. So it's an interesting take. Kids do sing with him. So very different teaching method, but I think it's working for him and his kids are very happy. So you're going to see lots of different teaching methods, and this is one of the interesting ones, and it's 34 minutes long. All right, so let's just pick another one here real quick. Let's take a look at this one. All right, as you can see, this is 8th grade English Language Arts.
Okay, so after you finish writing up what you think empathy is on the board, I would like you to open up your Google Docs and open up your quick write document.
All right, so it's a real classroom environment. It's recorded for education purposes. So it's going to be a great experiment just to observe other teachers' classrooms like this. All right, so let's take a look at the forms. I have two forms, form number 1, form number 2. First form is called observation form number 1. You can definitely put the date here because you are doing the observation, and you can also put observation time if you want. But if you are missing the teacher name, the subject level, you may leave them blank, or you can simply say NA. But observer would be you in this case. So the first question says, what were the learning objectives of the lesson? Now, well, most likely you won't be able to find this information in the videos, so you may skip this part. But if there's any indication in terms of objectives listed, state objectives like TEKS, write them over here. Otherwise, you may just leave blank or say that this was not available in the video. So the second question is, how did the teacher begin and end the lesson? You want to see the procedures in the beginning and at the end of the lesson. In some videos, you may not see the very beginning of the lesson, or after the bell rings, maybe you're not going to see the first couple of minutes of the class. So if that's the case, you can indicate it here. But at least every class or every video has a lesson beginning and ending. So you should be able to tell something here about the teacher's procedures. The third question says, what did the teacher use for teaching materials or instructional aids? You can definitely tell this. There are some manipulatives used, like the ELA teacher was talking about Google Docs. She's also using projector, textbooks, some other materials. You want to talk about those in this section. Number 4, this is very important. It's asking about instructional methods and strategies. So after reading this week's chapters and also whatever we studied so far in this class, you should have some ideas on what a lecture is, what an inquiry learning is, what is discovery learning, how does discussion work, what are games and simulations, right? So you do want to identify the instructional methods that this teacher used in this classroom based on your readings. So you want to talk about her or his style of teaching, right? The fifth question is, how did the teacher assess learning? We're going to talk about assessment more in the coming weeks, but so far you can talk about if the teacher did a formal assessment or informal assessment. So formal assessment would be something like a test or something similar, maybe an essay, right? Informal would be simply asking questions verbally and checking to see if the student understood. This would be informal, assessment. Also, there's formative, summative assessment types. Formative would be while the instruction is still going on. before the lesson ends. If the teacher is asking about, if the teacher is assessing students' knowledge um, within the lesson before the lesson ends, this will be formative because this is still going on. The information is still forming, right? The summative one would be at the end of the entire session. This would be, in this case, a lesson, right? At the end of the lesson or at the end of the unit, we do check the understanding of the students. This could be a final test, final exam, or unit exam, or anything pretty much done at the end of the lesson for the purpose of understanding students' knowledge and understanding of the topic. In type of activity, that sort of activity would be called a summative assessment. All right, so again, if you need to know more about this, you can always review Chapter 8. Number 6, what can you say about the teacher's philosophy, beliefs, and style? So we're talking about student-centered instruction, teacher-centered instruction. You can talk about if the teacher is traditional teacher or progressive teacher, and this is the place that you want to talk about that. Number 7, how does a teacher manage classroom? Can you identify any classroom management issues or actual specific techniques that this teacher used? So if you see a teacher using an attention gatherer, calling out students, doing certain things in the classroom to manage the classroom more effectively, talk about that. You want to spot as many as possible classroom management techniques for this part. Number 8, you want to watch the student behavior in the classroom. So do you see any students who are not paying attention, and what do they do when they're not paying attention? And if you see teacher is intervening and try to get those students on task, also write that down. Write it down how she or he will get students' attention and put them back on task. Number 9, how does a teacher communicate with students? Can you identify some body language, some verbal cues, or maybe some nonverbal cues, right? Some facial expressions and things like those. All right, number 10, who were the students in the class? What did you notice about them? So try to talk about their demographics, their attitudes, the diversity in the classroom, their motivational levels, and their participation levels. Number 11, what did you see that is effective in engaging students in this classroom? How do you see how do you see that how do you see that is ineffective in keeping students engaged? Again, if you see, observe, engaged students, you want to talk about um, how they're engaged. And if you can identify any of the tools that teacher uses to make them engaged, also talk about that. Number 12 and number 13 is about, based on your observation, if you liked something in the classroom, let's say you liked one of the instructional strategies that teacher used, you may talk about that here. So I want to know, two instructional strategies that you observed, and you would like to use that in your classroom. Same thing goes for classroom management strategies. Talk about two classroom management strategies that you observed in the video, and you would like to apply that in your classroom. So that's number 12 and number 13. Let's take a look at the second form. All right, second form is just one page shorter. This has kind of like checklist of items. So here again, fill out this part as much as you know the information, and take a look at the student behavior. Were they on task, off task, or were they engaged? So, and write down at least a sentence of information here. Explain this section. Explain student behavior. Teacher strategies to observe. If you see teacher use discussion methods, problem solving methods, listening, modeling, lecturing, or maybe assessment, go ahead and explain the strategies, or check on the strategies that teacher used, and explain explain the items that you checked off. Teaching materials being used. Again, if you observed in the classroom in this video that teacher uses, let's say, maps, go ahead and mark that. If you see the teacher used books, go ahead and check this off. All right. Type of student grouping. If you see students are grouped in small groups, this would be the option to check. If you see students are individuals, no grouping, it would be individuals. If you see whole classroom discussion, it would be whole group. All right, some other parts here, types of student activities, and the management, classroom management and discipline. If you see some of these items in this video, you can also check them off. And this is the section where you do want to talk about your overall comments and reflections. This is very important. Don't leave this blank. You want to talk about what this observation meant for you and how did this, or you can talk about the implications. How is this going to help you in the future? Did you learn something new? Right? So if nothing was new, you can also talk about that. So go ahead and reflect about this observation assignment. So I'm going to show you some sample student projects so you will have a better idea of how this could be done. Let's take a look at sample 1, form 1. Alright, so this was middle school grade level. I left out the observer name. This is student. I mean, this is the teacher's name. So as you can see, information is filled out pretty good. So so this student listed 2 instruction strategies the teacher used in the classroom, and then she would like to use the same in her classroom when she teaches. Right. Same thing for classroom management strategies. So if you observe those, you can definitely include them here. Let's take a look at the second form. All right, the second form here, well, actually this is a blank form. All right, let me go ahead and open this one right here. All right, so the second form is filled out like this. So you see the check marks, you see the explanations, and at the bottom I do want to show you the reflection statement. This is a pretty good reflection statement talking about what this observation was meant for the observer. So you do definitely want to talk about how this felt and how this was helpful or maybe not helpful for your profession and for your future classroom. All right. So this assignment, along with other assignments, are due on Sunday, June 11th. All right. So any questions about project number 3, observation assignment? Nope. All right. I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but yeah, with only 3 weeks, that's the best we can do. So let's review. We've got online discussion number 3, instructional project number 2, and project number 3. And then there are 3 chapters that we have to work on. The quiz passwords, I'm going to release them after the webinar sometime tonight. I will go ahead and place the quiz passwords here for quiz number 2, 3, and 4. And then you're going to have 20 questions in these quizzes. Again, quiz number 2 is about chapter 10. Quiz number 3 is about chapter 11. Quiz number 4 is about chapter 13. Before taking these quizzes, make sure you're going to do all of your readings and also review these presentations as well as the quiz review. All right, and then you can take the quizzes. All right, so at this time, I do want to take your questions. All right, Silab says, can we get more time added to quiz time? Currently, it's set to 35 minutes. I can increase this a little bit more, yes. No problem. No problem. I'm sure it's going to help a lot. All right. Any other questions and any other issues? Let's review what's going to happen next week. So on next week, which will be our last week, right? On week number 3, we're going to talk about, there's only one instruction project, which will be your lesson plan assignment. There are still 3 quizzes and 3 chapters to go, and online discussion number 3, and your final project. And if I can, again, I will try to release the content for week number 3 this week, maybe by Friday or maybe during the weekend. I'll try to release the content for week number 3. So you can, if you are finished early, you can start working on them. All right, no problem. So if you have any other questions, any other issues that you want to talk about? All right. So I guess I'm going to end the meeting here. And if you have any questions, let me know by email. And if not, I will see you next time in the next webinar. All right. Have a good night. All right. See you next time. Thank you.